What's up, everyone? It's Tyler with Mom's Basement MMA, and I'm running it back with one of my favorite people on the planet. We're on episode 77, and Hillary, I've made it here to episode 77. You are the last show
Nice.
of the year.
Double sevens. That's good luck.
Double sevens, here we are. So,
Yeah.
I haven't gotten canceled yet. YouTube still lets me upload stuff, even though I've angered some promotions along the way. I've angered some fighters along the way, but you know what? I'm here, Miss Hilarie Rose. Hillary, how are you doing this December afternoon?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm so excited to sit here and have a conversation with you today. Thug too. He's obviously excited also.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I'm doing good.
that's who I actually wanted to interview. I needed to have
I'm not
Thug on,
surprised.
and thank you for interpreting. Appreciate that. Um, Hillary, I wanted to ask you a little bit since the last time that you were on. It was this past summer. It was like June or July.
Yep.
We were just coming off the Elise Reed fight, but there's been
Yes.
a lot of stuff that's been going on since then. You've been
For sure.
active since then. There's been a lot of things going on behind the scene with you. Before we get into that, we have to talk about the mother of all UFC cards, UFC 268. Your girl was on that card. I want to
Yes.
talk about that fight, and I want to talk about just your experience being at that fight because I know you went from Massachusetts to New York.
Yep.
Why don't you give me a walkthrough of like what that experience was like? What do you remember from that event? And what's kind of like one of those things that just sticks in the back of your mind even after all this time?
It was really, really cool. It was a great event. So that morning we had a Cage Titans event. I had a teammate of mine fighting early in the morning or around like noontime. So I went and I cornered him with my coaches. And then I right away went to the Amtrak train. I hopped on the train to New York. And then another coach of mine, Steve Mays, he was able to get me a ticket to the UFC 268. Yep. And that was when Rose was fighting in a lot of really, really big fights. It was really, really amazing just being in there. I was actually seated with the Gaethje family. So
Oh
like,
wow.
I like didn't say much to them, but like the like what is it? Like here, the Whitman like crew. So I think where my ticket was, I was kind of with the families of like Usman and the Whitman crew and Gaethje and all them. So like I just was by myself. I was sitting by myself. Steve Mays is on the floor, but I had really great seats. And you could just hear them talking, getting excited as you know Gaethje's fighting Chandler and all this stuff. So it was really exciting to be there and like absorb that from like their kind of small group that like they have no idea who I am and like I have no idea who they are, but I can hear what they're saying. So it was really cool and just to be able to be there in Madison Square Garden, right? I mean,
Yeah.
one of the biggest places to ever go to for a fight or any sort of event. Was just so exciting. And then obviously after the fight, I got the opportunity to meet her, which was a huge deal to me. I was nervous as hell. The first thing I said was, I named my dog after you. And she was just like, okay. And I was like, you're so amazing. So, I mean, it's really funny. Like, I mean, some people would maybe have not even a clue who she is, but like me seeing her in person and like seeing her hug her coaches and stuff after she had just won was super surreal and super awesome. And just to be kind of engulfed in that overall situation behind the scenes of the UFC, it felt good to kind of get my toes wet, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I was on Contender Series, but it was really hard COVID time, so like I never really didn't get to do much. So being behind the scenes and getting to see all the fighters, I met Ngannou, I met Usman, I met tons of them. So it was really, really cool and a great opportunity. And it kind of really like triggered the rest in a good way, like triggered how motivated I'd be for the rest of the year. So
Mhm.
I was pumped. It was a really, really awesome opportunity, and I'm super grateful for Steve. He knew my birthday was coming up, so he got me that for my birthday. And he knows how much I love Rose. He always sends me videos of Pat Barry and Rose saying, "You're the best. Who's the best?" Like constantly sends it to me just in like middle of the day. So he's really awesome, and it was a really, really cool experience. Like it was a long day. I went to the UFC and then I got on a 2 a.m. train to go right home. I didn't even stay in the city. I just went right home, got home at like 8 a.m. And it was really, really fun. It was a great overall day for like Jake fighting and then going to see her fight and win. And the card was just awesome in general. So
I tell you what, it really was. I got a little nervous. I thought Rose. I, I I gave it to her very clearly. It was a split
me
decision.
too.
Um, But at the end of the day, the right person won. But
Yeah.
I always kind of reflect back, like anytime a fight does go to the judges, and it happens quite often at the strawweight class, at the flyweight class, a lot of these fights
Yeah.
go the distance.
Hmm.
And I think like when you're fighting at those like lower weight classes, there's a little bit more on the line, I feel,
Yeah,
because you just
for
don't know
sure.
what the hell's going to happen when you go
Hmm.
when you go up there. And it kind of makes me wonder, for the people who judge, what do you do to have to be a judge? Is there like an online class you take? Like, what do you
I have
do?
no idea.
Shouldn't we know?
I know.
Like,
Did you see the fights this weekend with like Angela Hill and her decision? And
yeah, that fucked up my parlay pretty good.
yeah, I mean, it was it's hard to watch sometimes because when you know and it's clear who has won,
Yeah,
it's very questionable, especially of that level, like the UFC level. You know, you think that, I mean, I'm not banging on the UFC at all, but
yeah,
you would think that they would want to try to have the best judges, or like even like fighters that have retired, like should be, in those seats and kind of judging from, a fighter's perspective instead of like a boxing commission,
yeah.
where everyone kind of has their own, or have like a boxing commission and have an MMA and then have a wrestling, so that there's different views and everyone kind of has a different view. But yeah, I know it's tough to watch sometimes for
It
sure. And that's
is.
why, you never want to leave it to the judges. But of course, that's not out of your control at all times. You
Yeah.
never know how a fight's going to go.
And you all are fighting at such a level where knockouts don't always happen because everyone's fit as
100%.
hell,
Yep.
right? So that's not even. It's not like you're 265 pounds. It's like, well, then you should have knocked the guy out. That's
Yes. Right.
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 It's a completely different set of circumstances,
Easier said than done.
and that's not always going to happen. And when I think back at it, it's like there's kind of like two parts of it to me. Like me as a fan watching it on my couch, I don't really give a shit if it's open scoring or not, because
Yeah.
I kind of like, I don't mind the drama really so much at the end.
Hmm.
But if I were a coach, if I were a fighter, fuck that. I want to know. Like I want to
Yeah.
know exactly, because I bet
Yeah.
she Angela Hill, if she knew she was down, she would have done something a lot different.
100%.
And that kind of like, it's a game changer, right? So it's like there shouldn't be, for the fighters at least, there shouldn't be any surprises.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. Oh no. Yeah, I
He
agree.
agrees too, boy. So
That's right.
I want to ask you about your 2021.
Okay.
And when I think back at this past year, it's weird for me because number one, because I'm a huge fan of you, it's like Jesus Christ, it's been forever since she's fought, right?
It feels
But
that way for sure.
but you've been very active this year.
Hmm.
It's hard, like it's hard to believe that you fought twice in CFFC already this
Yep.
year. You had a kickboxing fight against Glory Watson, who's very, very good. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't know who she is, but she's a very up and coming prospect in the New England.
No doubt. No doubt.
She's definitely a bad, bad girl. But you've been incredibly active. But at the same time, it just seems like it's been a minute. The last MMA fight was Elise Reed. Where
Yep.
have you been mentally and physically since that fight? Now that that was all the way back in May. Here we
Yeah.
are in December. How are you doing since then?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling, motivated. I was extremely bummed after that fight. I lost to Cheyenne on Contender. Great, no big deal.
Right.
I've had losses in the past, but that is a loss that I really want back. Again, I'm biased and, whatever, but when you're in a title fight, and I've watched Keith Peterson let fights go way too long,
Mm-hmm.
and there's 3 seconds left in my fight, in a title fight, and I'm not hurt. Yes, of course, there's last few seconds. Elise is going to rain strikes down, but I was not hurt at any point in that fight. I still had a lot in me, and till this day, it still bothers me very much. That is a fight that I do want back. I believe that I still could have won that fight. I believe I was winning that fight. I won the first round clear as day. And the second round, it could have gone either way, but I'm very mad about that fight. It's something that eats me up often. And knowing that she's now in the UFC drives me insane. Like, not that I'm taking anything from her. She's obviously a good martial artist and a great fighter. But that one really puts a fire in my ass. I'm so annoyed at that. So when the opportunity comes and I'm in the UFC, that is a fight that I absolutely want back. The Cheyenne fight, taught me a lot. Like I really like Shan. We speak with each other often. I gained a lot from fighting her. I don't need that fight back. You know,
Right.
Cheyenne's great. She's really, really good. But the Elise Reed fight, I want back. Like that's
Yeah.
something that still to this day bothers me, but it also motivates me, right? I know that I'm a great fighter. I did a lot of really good things in that fight. But
You
I
almost ended
also,
the fight.
yeah, almost, and on a few occasions. And I think that in my mind, mentally, for some reason, I may have thought I was like losing, but I wasn't.
Hmm.
Like, I think that like my coaches were. So after this fight, my coaches said to me, and this really clicked with me, and really, it didn't bother me, but it you know, stuck in my core was that I wasn't um fighting to win. I was fighting not to lose.
Got it.
So, and that's a very, and the way they said it is very smart. Like sometimes I have fights and I go out there and I'm fighting to win, but they said I was fighting not to lose in that fight. I wasn't fighting to win. And
Hmm.
that kind of registered in my brain. You know, they were right. I might have been just kind of going through the motions. And I think I had a little bit of fear in that fight. I don't know if it was, you know, the title shot and, you know, getting the belt and all that. But yeah, they said to me, you know, you weren't fighting to win, you were fighting not to lose in that fight. And that really clicked with me. And that bothered me because I know that I'm a really good fighter. And I know that if my mindset maybe was just slightly a little bit different, I could have got the finish and I could have done, you know, some other transitions that maybe weren't like top of mind.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's a fight game. That's just the way it goes. So, you know, I learn from every single fight, whether I win or I lose. But that's one that I'd really like to get back.
Totally understand. Is there such a thing as when your coaches talk to you about you're fighting not to lose
Mm-hmm.
and you need to fight more on your terms? Is there such a thing as like maybe respecting your opponent a little too much?
Yeah, no
is that a
doubt.
thing?
And I respected Elise a lot. I was really kind of fearful of her kicks.
Sure.
And then once I was in there, I was like, oh, these kicks, like all camp, I'm like, oh, those kicks come from anywhere. Those kicks come from anywhere. And then once I was in there, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, these kicks aren't as, you know, quick and as fast and as hard as I anticipated to. You know, when you watch someone, you
Yeah.
know, on TV and you're watching them fight, oh, this girl's got pretty good kicks. You know, she's really fast at the kicks, but my kicks were just as fast. I think
Hmm.
that they landed harder. Honestly, I hit her in the body with 2 left kicks pretty well. So in low kicks, I had some really good low kicks, some push knee kicks. So I think I was so fearful of her kicks that it made me a little more timid to engage. But that once I was in there, I was like, oh, you know, and even after, I was like, you know, I was so worried about her kicks, you know, all through camp that it really wasn't something that, you know, once I was in there, I needed to worry about.
When I go back and I look at
Oh.
film, when I look at fights, I always do it with the audio turned off. And I do that for a couple reasons. Number one, because I don't want the announcers or the commentators to influence me. And number two, it's because of the acoustics in the actual arena. If it's a
Yeah.
prelim fight, there may not be a lot of people there. The strikes are going to seem or sound a lot more intense than what they really
Yes.
are.
No doubt.
Because skin on skin, full speed,
Yeah, it's
um,
empty.
and it's empty, right? Like on a main card, depending on what type of event it is,
Yeah.
you may not even hear
You might
anything.
not hear it
So,
because you just hear people yelling it's so
right.
true. Because when
So,
you watch the early prelims, there's like nobody in the
right.
stands.
Right. Except people like me, because,
Yeah.
hey, I paid a lot of money to go this fight. I'm watching every fight.
For sure.
But I love the early prelims, and I
Me
love the
too.
prelims.
Those are some of the best
They
fights.
are, because it's like, oh wow, like I've seen one fight of this person in like CFFC or LFA. I
Yeah.
remember this guy,
Yeah,
and
you remember them.
so I'm a nerd. I love it. I love watching the undercard fights. Can you tell me a little bit post the Elise Reed fight? That was at CFFC '97.
Hmm.
What happened between that and then your kickboxing bout with Glory Watson? Because I obviously like you being a professional, it's just not something you see very often where like you would see a professional like kickboxing bout after an MMA fight. Like what compelled you to want to fight her in a kickboxing match as opposed to boxing or MMA?
So what happened was it was a Monday. I found out about the fight on like 4 days notice. So they didn't offer me an MMA fight. They offered me a Muay Thai kickboxing fight. I don't know if it was um, Glory had plans for a specific opponent, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I was drastically different than who she planned to fight. So maybe they didn't want me to grapple, and she was coming off of a loss. So I obviously have more pro fights. I'm 5-3, have more experience in the cage as a professional. So I don't. I think for them, as well as myself, like I would have took the fight if it was an MMA fight regardless.
Yeah.
I'm always ready. I train constantly outside of the gym or outside of camp, right? My life is fighting. So whether I'm teaching or coaching or training on my own, I'm always ready. So when they offered and said, it'd be a kickboxing fight, I said, okay, great. Like that's no problem to me. It doesn't affect my MMA record and it doesn't affect her MMA record. So I think that was ultimately the goal is she was coming off of a loss. And I don't think they anticipated her to lose, but risk reward. They were like, would you rather take it? Would you take a kickboxing fight for, this Saturday? And I said, yeah, sure. Of course. Like, I had a lot of fun. I would do it again for sure. So, but it was also weird. Like as soon as you get in there, you like want to instinctively grapple.
Right.
Like if you're like it's just natural, like your instincts, and you're like, oh yeah, we can't like be doing this. And we would just like giggle and laugh at each other. It was really fun. It was like a Saturday sparring match.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like her. I think she's got a bright future. I'm really curious to see like
Yes.
where
She's
she ends
great.
up in her
And she
career.
used to fight at like 135. She's lost
Mhm.
all this weight and come down and she's super strong and she's really nice. Like I like her a lot. I think she's super, super nice.
Yeah.
And we both have a lot of respect for each other. So both going in, we know each other, obviously. So it was just fun to mix it up with someone who you kind of know.
Yeah.
I feel like now when you're a professional, you don't see regional people fighting regional, like you're
Yeah.
usually all training with each other at this point.
Right.
So to even just get in there and mix it up with her, I had never sparred with her before. So it was a first time for us to even move with each other at all. So
And it's a good opportunity for her too, because
yeah,
finding people at your caliber is insanely difficult to do on the regional
100%.
scene. It's
Yeah,
it's not easy. What typically ends up happening is like, hey, let's fly in this random Hawaiian chick we don't know,
right.
because there's literally nobody else to fight,
Mm-hmm.
or you have to fight a can because they're the only person that'll take it.
For sure. For
So
sure.
I don't really like envy women fighters at coming up at the through the ranks because of how difficult that is. Like
Yeah.
how you guys are able to stay as active as you are, like on the AMI scene. It's like how, um,
It's really hard. Like, my teammate Ash, like
yeah,
it's sometimes we struggle to find fights for her. Like her next MMA fight is against a girl who fights at 25. So they're meeting at 120. So it's like it's hard to find people in 115. It's hard to find people at 125. So, you got to find an in between. So, we're lucky for that. So that's why she does a lot of like Muay Thai tournaments and
hmm
grappling tournaments to keep herself busy. Because you got to stay busy somehow. So for her to mix it up, it's good because you don't always have that opportunity, especially like regionally. Usually when I was in the regional scene, or like not in the regional scene as an amateur, there was a few girls, but like
hmm
again, I was traveling to Philly or I was going to New York. I was never always at home. So
yeah, and that's why I need to do a better job of having up and coming lady talent on this show, because
yeah,
that stuff's not lost on me. I think it's insanely more difficult for women for so many different reasons,
yeah,
biologically, but most importantly, particularly at the lower level weight classes,
yeah,
finding people to fight.
yeah,
It's like an odyssey to find a body.
for
And,
sure.
and and that's something that's not lost on me. And that journey needs to be talked about more. I hope I can do that more in
Yeah.
the next calendar year. But let's talk a little bit post Glory Watson. You win that fight, and I was kind of expecting, like, I saw it pop up like on your Instagram. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, kickboxing fight, awesome. And then I was kind of anticipating in the back of my mind. I'm like, she's getting ready for a fight. There's gonna be a fight soon. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And I almost expected you to fight in like one of the CFC cards again. Like, what
Hmm.
happened there? Because your plan was, well, what ended up happening is you signed up for an LFA fight. Like, what happened with CFFC? Like, can you talk a little bit about what made you want to sign with Legacy Fight Alliance?
So with the CFFC, I had reached out to them, and my manager reached out. There just isn't women. So
Yeah.
for them, all the women that were in the weight division are either now in the UFC. Like, uh, what's her name? Jasmine. But she's fighting 25. Like, obviously, 15, I think, was a tough weight cut for her. She's
Right.
now in the UFC. Elise is now in the UFC. I think that it's a very, and there's another girl that's a 115er, but we're under the same management. So I think that they're like, we're both trying to build you and get you to the right places. We don't really want you to fight each other yet, which is totally understandable. I get that
Yeah.
also. But I mean, for me, it's like fights are fights. But I can understand what they're, we're both growing because we want to get to the highest level. So they
Mhm.
didn't want us to fight yet. And that I totally get.
Yeah.
But that's just the way it is sometimes. So my manager was just looking where they could, and I'd, reach out to him. Hey, is there anything coming up? Is there anything coming up? So obviously, the opportunity for LFA popped up and against Paprocki, and I was like, yeah, great fight. I'd love to take it. And it was only, I know that her opponent had backed out, or she was supposed to fight Demopoulos, and then
Yes.
Demopoulos got in the UFC. So I think I had like maybe just under 3 weeks to get ready for the
Mhm.
fight. So again, another short notice fight. But I felt good, and I thought that it was a great fight. I think Paprocki's a good fighter. She obviously has fought, some tough chicks and won, and she's a scrapper.
Mhm.
So I was looking forward to that fight. I was like, yeah, let's do it. We're both kind of in the same place right now. So, and there's not many females. So, it's
Yeah.
inevitable that we were either going to fight each other at some point.
Whether it be at the LFA, CFFC level, or
Yeah.
UFC, Bellator,
Yeah,
whatever.
contender, any of those.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I mean, I knew who she was, and when they offered it, obviously, me and my coaches watched some of her film, and we all decide, just like I'm sure she does with me.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a great fight. I was really looking forward to that one.
So you get out to Wheatfield, Wisconsin, or wherever the hell it is,
Yeah.
right? You go all the way cross country for a fight
Hmm.
against. I don't know at a regional level if you're going to get a better fight than Paprocki. Like I just don't
Yeah,
think you are.
super
So
tough. Always
yeah,
comes forward, not afraid to get hit. She's a
she's
scrappy,
yeah
scrappy chick.
she's tough as nails, very
Yeah.
exciting, and like me knowing both of you personally, I'm like, God damn it, like fuck this fight. I don't want to see this fight, right? But from a fan, it's like, wow, if you're a fan and you don't know who either of them are, this is gonna be a good fight. Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be
And
violent.
I anticipated that. I anticipated a really, really good back and forth
Mhm.
fight between the two of us. Again, like one that I hope that inevitably will happen. Obviously, again, it didn't happen, but you know, I would love to fight her.
Well, it will happen. I think I did have a feeling like I'm like, well, for me, for in the world of Tyler Little, we're kicking the
Yeah,
can down the road here because it's going to happen. Your paths are going to cross again.
for sure, for sure.
But let's talk about it. The fight doesn't happen. There's like a serious medical issue that happened with you, and I
Hmm.
wanted to give you the opportunity, Hillary, to talk a little bit about it because you were very disappointed. The fight
Hmm.
didn't go through. Why don't you pick it up from there and kind of tell your fans, the people out there, like what really happened? Why weren't you able to fight Paprocki?
So I woke up on weigh-in day. I was at about 120, my weight, 120, maybe 120, like 120 point, like 4 or something like that. Easy weight cut for me. That's really easy. So I got in the tub. I lose like my first 2-ish pounds, like 118.5 or like about 118. Yeah. So I lost about 2 pounds. And I was cramping a little bit, which is normal. You're cutting weight, you're cramping. You just anticipate that. You're putting your body through basically trauma, right? It's in fight or flight mode. So I knew, I got to get to 116. So we get back in the tub, and I'm cramping bad, to the point where I can't really like straighten my legs. I have to like keep myself in a ball, and it's uncomfortable pain. Like it's just, again, I'm thinking that it's the weight cut. I'm having a bad weight cut. My body is off. And it was weird because I was still sweating. So
Mm-hmm.
sweating, 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 sweating. And then inevitably I start to stop sweating. And we're at about 117.8. So I wrap myself up, I sweat, I lay down for a little while, and then I'm just cramping really bad. I suffer from panic attacks. So I had a really, really bad panic attack. Well, because I was cramping so bad, it was uncomfortable for me. So my coaches at that point go, you're not cutting any more weight. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not happening. So I get on the scale. I'm 117 and a half. We let LFA know. We let Paprocki know. So for Paprocki, the fight was still on. We're still ready to go. So the rule was that I had to weigh in at 124 the next day. So I couldn't gain a bunch of weight in between. I had to weigh 124 because I think she weighed in at maybe 114. She's a little smaller than me.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. Like I've had fights, similar situations, they haven't made weight. You have to be this weight tomorrow. So me and my coach was like, great, we're good to go. We'll get you rehydrated. We'll make you feel good. But I never started to feel better. I was still cramping. And the thing is, I saw Paprocki say she hated how I acted at weigh-ins. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand that. where like I was fine, I was acting fine. Oh yeah, I super appreciate, but like I was suffering. But the biggest thing my coaches always say to me is it's showtime. You put on a good face. It doesn't matter if you didn't make weight. You show up. You're not looking like you're in pain. You're not looking like this. It's showtime. You pretend you feel good no matter how shitty you feel. You put on a good face, you smile, you fucking suck it up. So that's what I was doing. Hey, I'm so sorry. Thank you for taking the fight. I was super nice, even though I was suffering. So we leave. We go to get some food. I eat. I'm feeling a little bit better, but I have this really bad cramp, like uncomfortable cramp. And it just didn't go away. It lingered and lingered. And then, we wake up the next day, we go to get some coffee, and we're crossing the street. And I couldn't run. Like I was in so much pain that like I physically couldn't run. And so we get back to the hotel. I, go to the bathroom and I come out, and both my coaches are sitting down, and they said, we're going to the hospital now. There's obviously something wrong. You're not your typical self on fight day. You're cramping. And I go, we can't put you in a fight if you can't walk across the street or you can't run across the street. Like there's obviously a lingering issue here. And I instantly upset, I'm crying. No, I'm fine. Like, it's not as bad as it feels. And they're like, at this point, there's really no choice. So I go obviously to the emergency room. We get in contact with LFA. We let them know, Hilarie's here. So I have to get an IV. They do a bunch of like, they thought that maybe it was my appendix. So I'm like, fuck this. I'm in Wisconsin. I have to get my fucking appendix out. So I'm anxious as hell. I'm thinking, oh my God, I have to get my appendix out. So then we run a bunch of tests. And then it turns out that I had an ovarian cyst at first. So your ovaries are like, tiny, tiny, tiny. And I've had ovarian cysts first before, and they're very painful. But I don't know if it was because I was cutting weight that the pain was more drastic. Where like I've had them burst and I've been fine. I've had to take a few days off from training, but it really destroyed my body. Like I was not in good shape. I was pale as a ghost. I was sickly, and it was scary. I was scared, especially being somewhere I'm not used to being. So at that point, the doctor was like, there is no chance that you can fight or get in the cage or do any of that. So I was in the emergency room for like 4 to 5 hours, getting into my IV, running a bunch of tests. My coaches are there with me. So then at that point, I wasn't able to fight, and it wasn't my decision. It was the doctor's and my coach's decision. I would have fought regardless of how I felt. If I lost, it would have been on me. But I felt guilty. I felt guilty for Paprocki because she loses out on her payday, and I lose out on a payday, right? Like I travel all the way there. I pay for my coach to get there. As a fighter, how much money you have to spend in order to bring people out. And then I can't pay my coaches, right? I didn't get money from fighting because I didn't fight. So now I can't pay my coaches because I didn't fight. So I was medically sick and not well, and I flew home the next day, and I had to go to the doctor a few times to get checked out. But I'm cleared and I'm good to go. It was just an overall shitty situation. I felt like the way that they described Hilarie's sick, like it was way more than that. It was a more serious medical issue than what it was. And if you're a female who's suffered from something like this, it's not like, oh shit, I have a cramp and I don't feel good. It's not like I have my period, it's really bad pain. And then I think being in a weight cut and, being like deficient in energy and calories and all that really kind of made it worse. But I tried to tough it out as much as I could. I've never, ever once in my life missed weight or refused to fight. Like never. I fights are far and in between at this point. Like if I'm going to fight, I'm going to fight. Right. So I was really disappointed, and I was disappointed because I really wanted to fight for LFA. They're a great promotion. They're a good feeder to the UFC. So it's just disappointing. And, I can understand why Paprocki was upset and, maybe LFA. But they were really, really kind. LFA was really nice to me. They said, we don't want anything to be wrong with you. We want you to be healthy, and we would never want you to get in the cage if something was medically wrong. So, but like fighters know how it is. A lot of fighters go in there not healthy. No one's ever 100%, but at that point it was kind of really out of my control.
And I think it's like kind of one of those things you get in the moment. Like the analogy that comes into my head is like, the drunk person at the bar, like, oh, I'm fine, I could drive home.
Right, exactly.
And everyone's just like, bro, you're wrecked. No way.
Yeah, no, we're driving you home.
Yeah. We're driving you home. And that's basically what happened to you. I think that it all worked out for the best. It worked out for the best for Paprocki too, because she got called up on the Contender Series.
The Contender, yeah, great. I watched.
Yeah, and that never would have happened.
For her. Yeah,
That never would have happened had you two fought, because you both would have been suspended. I guarantee it.
I agree.
like you
I
both
think
would
you're
have.
probably right.
You both were facing a multi-month suspension after
Yeah,
that fight. Like
for
that,
sure.
it was going to be a bloodbath. She was not going to be ready physically. That
Yeah.
contender series fight never would have happened. So it
Hmm.
ended up working out for her. But for you, you didn't have an opportunity like that. Like you're
Hmm.
not feeling well. You go all the way to Wheatfield, Wisconsin. I'm going to keep calling it that. It's fun to say. You go to Wheatfield, Wisconsin. You get checked out by the doctors. They're telling you, like, listen, issues here, problems with ovaries, not happening. You
Yeah.
get back home to Massachusetts. Like, I would imagine you have to go to your regular doctor for a little bit.
Yep.
How long did it take for them to sign off on you and say, like, okay, you can go back to doing what it is that you typically do?
So the thing is, when you have like a cyst on your ovary burst, a lot of it just kind of disperses in your body. So
Mm-hmm.
I had like some cramps and stuff after. Um, so I took a solid week and a half off from any sort of physical training at all. It doesn't seem like a long time, but it for someone like me who trains every single day, it was a long time. And then I slowly started getting back into doing stuff. Um, but I saw my doctor right when I got back, and they said, you need rest. Obviously, you probably pushed your body to its limit with a weight cut,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's probably what triggered what happened. So I took some time off, and then I slowly started building my training, and then I got cleared from my doctor. Obviously you're healthy, you're good to go. I don't remember when that was, but it was probably like 3 weeks after.
Okay.
So then I started picking up my training again, and then I've just been training ever since. And I've been, just on top of recovery. I think recovery is really, I'm good about recovery, but I'm also not, where I'm like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I got to make sure I get to class. I got to make sure I do this. I got
Mm-hmm.
to, I want to get the reps in because I have an important fight coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more just kind of telling myself, now's your time to rest.
Yeah. Got it. Can you talk to me a little bit about you get back home, and you and I were chatting a little bit back and forth, and I know that you were just like, yeah, I really want to fight in like December, January, February, somewhere around there. I really
Yeah.
want to fight. And now all of a sudden Invicta comes out of the woodwork and they're like, yo, we got a fight for you. Like, can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about how did that opportunity materialize?
Hmm.
Um, and is this, and can you talk a little bit about your opponent?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a good matchup.
I think it's a great matchup. So last week my manager reached out to me and he sent me Emily Whitmire, her Tapology, and said, what do you think about this fight for January 12th for Invicta? And I mean, obviously, I follow the UFC. I followed all the tough seasons. I know who she is. I've been following her for years. It was a fight that, in my mind, if I was going to get into the UFC, I figured would maybe happen there. But when they told me, for Invicta, I said, yeah, absolutely. Let's take the fight. I didn't even ask my coaches yet. I just agreed and said yes. One of my coaches knew that it was that I always wanted to fight her and get the opportunity to fight her. Not because I think that it's an easy fight, but I think that her skill level, I think that I'm much more skillful, but I think that we are kind of in a good place in each other. I know that she was like, I think 3-1 or something when she started in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
So all of her last, like, whatever, 5, 6 fights have all been in the UFC, and she's had wins and she's had losses. So at the highest level. So she has that over me all day. But I think that our skill sets line up really well, where I think that I can really showcase what I'm good at when I fight her. I know that she's very scrappy. She's good at submissions, but she's also susceptible to submissions, right? Her last few losses have been by arm lock. So obviously that is an open thing that I think about too, but I know she's a strong grappler. She has a really strong team. She's on the syndicate team. I follow all those girls. I like a lot of those girls. And I like her. I have nothing against her. But I mean, obviously now we're opponents. We're not friends. But I'm looking forward to fighting her. I think that her and I match up really, really well with each other. I think that her record is deceiving, being 4-5. When you look at her record, she's lost to some of the best in the world. When you look at my record, I've lost to, people who are building their way up to where she was already at. But again, I think it's a really good matchup. I think that I am a much faster, better striker than her. I have good jujitsu. I just know that she's really good at taking advantage of opportunity when it's there. She knows she's very quick to taking advantage of opportunity. So, I just got to be aware of my, movement and, kind of dictate the pace. And I'm really excited to fight for Invicta. It being an all female promotion. I've always wanted to fight for them. I think Shannon is really, really great and doing a really awesome thing, doing an all female event. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good matchup, and I think that we're going to put on a really good performance. And I think that this performance is really going to get me to where I want to be.
I couldn't agree more with everything that you said. There are a couple things that I see when I see Whitmire fight. One of the things that stands out to me is she likes to be a bully at first. At first. But here's what I'm expecting without giving anything away. I don't know what your game plan is, so this is just a random guy in his basement talking shit. So this is what I think. I think she likes to be a bully. I'm expecting her to want to take center control of the octagon. Despite there being a height difference between you two, she's got 2 inches on you. The reach is identical.
Same reach, yeah.
She does not have a reach on you at all. So really, like, your height is irrelevant at this point. Your kickboxing's really good. Your striking in general is really, really good. Her jiu-jitsu is really good. So here's kind of like what I'm thinking. I suspect, I predict she's gonna want to take center control. She's gonna want to try to be a bully, but if you crack her a couple times, she's gonna start backing away.
Yeah.
She's not going to. She'll give you the center of the octagon as soon as she gets cracked. But I've noticed that about her. Like, in almost every single one of her fights, that's exactly what she does. She likes to get center control. Yeah. And if you let her bully you, she will.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt about it.
She will bully you if you let her. But you have to make her respect you first, and then she starts coming back. She's stronger. Like, I don't think she's particularly strong in the clinch. I think you can get hooks on her and move her right around on the cage whenever you want. Yeah. I think you're the stronger of the two. On the ground, she's very strong. I'll give her that.
She is strong. She has a good half guard. She's good on top and keeping connection. She's good at striking. I agree. She's her strong point is definitely the ground. I think that her goal is to get this to the ground, whether she's on her back or I'm on my back. I think that's where she really wants this fight to be. But maybe not. Maybe, we'll be surprised and she'll want to strike, but I don't think that that's really her game plan. I think that I will be able to hit her a few times and she will respect me very quickly.
I think her takedowns are good.
Yeah, she's got really good on trips. She likes to get that double overhook trip, especially off the wall. She's very aware of balance. That's a strong suit of hers. She knows balance. She knows weight distribution. So that's something that obviously my coaches and I notice. But yeah, I mean, she's a great fighter. She is skilled all around. She doesn't strike that much, but she's not afraid to. But you hit her a few times and she doesn't. I think she's not big on getting hit. I mean, it's fighting. She obviously knows she's going to get hit, but I think that that's not really where she wants to be when the fight's there. I think she wants to either have it kind of against the cage where there's a little less striking, or get it on the ground where she can either strike or get a submission.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you and your coaches have way more sophisticated conversations than what you and I are having. But if I'm her and I have to fight you, it's like, okay, I want to get her on the ground. I know she's good at kicks. I hope she fucking kicks me. I hope she does. Right. So it's like, these are the things I'm thinking of. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, kick me. I'm going to try to get that takedown and take you down from there. But you're very, very fast, and you're quite difficult to take down. So I don't think it's quite that simple. Yeah. It's going to be a really big fight. Invicta 45, I mean, that's an amazing promotion. Is it fair to say that because this isn't a CES fight, it's not a CFFC fight, the LFA one doesn't count because that one didn't ever materialize. Now you're kind of like out of your stopping grounds. The only time you've really been in this situation as a professional was when you were in Vegas, when you had to fight Bays. You're not there anymore, but you're in a different environment. It's going to be in Kansas City. Your thoughts on that? Like, you're out of your comfort zone a little bit. Does that like affect you at all mentally walking into the fight?
No, I honestly think I thrive a little. I think a lot of my fights have not been at home. I mean, obviously I had the CES fights. So I was home, but my last few haven't been at home, even being Philly, like obviously Philly isn't too far.
Mm.
But no, like I thrive on it. I'm really excited. I'm, honored to be able to fight for Invicta. I was offered an Invicta fight. They offered me my Cheyenne Bays fight, the day before Invicta called me to fight. So it was, inevitable that we were going to take the Contender Series fight. And Shannon understood that, or at least that's what my coach said. So now getting the opportunity to do that, I'm a much different fighter than when I was offered it back then. So I'm looking forward to showcasing my skills with a bunch of other women who are also really amazing fighters. Where, there's usually just one female fight on the card. It's obviously usually me or whoever my opponent is. So being able to share a card with all women is really, really cool. And I'm looking forward to that. I've always wanted to fight for Invicta, even as an amateur. So to get this opportunity, I was pumped. I was like, yeah, let's do it. And it's a great fight. So there was no real saying no here.
I hope that you stay in Invicta. Personally, I love Invicta, and
Yeah, it's great.
I love women's MMA. I think you guys like bring it like every single time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like watching like two mountain lions fight. If you like watching that,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
if you like watching mountain lions fight, then I don't know why you aren't watching women's MMA. Like, there are no
For
boring
real.
fights. There are no boring fights.
Never. The
Um,
women always show up, and I like that they do like that Phoenix series, like tournaments. They're mixing it up a little bit.
mhm.
So I like that. I like how they're going about their promotion right now. I think it's really, really cool, and I like what they're doing. And yeah, I'm happy to be there and to now be a part of Invicta and to make my debut for them. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And it's going to be a hell of a fight. It's a hell of an opportunity. I think you and Emily are similar in this in the sense that both of you guys are probably underappreciated, and a lot of people probably never favor either of you. Every single fight that you've ever gone into, you've probably been
Yeah,
called the underdog. Same for
always.
her, right?
I'm always the underdog. Yeah, you're right. We're typically the underdogs. You're right.
Right. So, so you're kind of going into this fight where somebody's going to be put in an uncomfortable position. Like, holy shit, everyone thinks I'm going to win. I'm not used to
Yeah,
this.
yeah, right.
Whether it's bullshit or not, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But I checked it. I checked Tapology right before I hopped on here with you, and
Yeah.
60% of people think it's going to be her who wins. So maybe you're going to be the underdog again. Familiar
Yeah, no
territory for
worries.
you.
The thing is, and I totally understand that. I mean, because if you look at, her record and you look at mine, who she's fought and who I fought, I mean, I think that's where a lot of people are probably just going to be like, oh, well, she's fought much better people, so she's going to be the better fighter. And I think that's, just, the people behind the screen.
I agree. I think for me, I honestly like I think you should be the favorite. I just think stylistically it's a very difficult fight for her. Props to her for taking it. I know you can do everything really well, but like when I think of you, I think about striking right away. It's the
Yeah.
first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Whitmire. I think of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, grappling. Yep.
And I think of grappling, and I think she's very good at that. But this isn't a
Mm-hmm.
grappling fight. This is an
No.
MMA fight,
Yeah.
and in order for her to flex on you and for her to like fight the fight on her terms, she has to do a lot more. She has to take you down. She's not going to get an easy takedown against you. Like
No, definitely not.
I've seen you
Especially
stuff
all the
them
things
all the
I'm doing.
time.
No. Yeah. And she doesn't shoot for like a double, right?
Right.
I mean, she's never really shooting. It's usually from a clinch position, which I love to be in the clinch. So again, I don't anticipate her shooting for a double, but maybe she'll surprise me. But I think I'll be prepared either way. People shoot for doubles when they start getting hit, so we'll see.
That's right. That's right. I think for her, it's one of those things where it's like I think her best opportunity for a takedown is if she catches a leg. If you throw a kick at, if you throw a body kick at her and she catches it, that's going to be her chance.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give away your game plan. I don't want to talk anymore about it. I am not going to tell you anything you don't already know and you already haven't game planned for with your coaches. Hilarie, as always, it's just amazing always talking to you. I know you got to go to training here in a little bit, so I want to give you the last word and give you the opportunity to shout out whoever you would like to before we sign off.
I just want to shout out my gym, USMMA, and all of my amazing teammates there. My coaches, Matt and Tom. Shout out to my training partner, Andy at Lozon MMA, Joe Lozon, Steve Mays. Andy, they're huge support. They're always have my back. Every time I'm offered a fight, I have them in a group chat. I send them all the stuff. So it's nice to have a bunch of different views and get opinions from different people, especially Joe, who's obviously a legend and at the highest level. So, I'm just grateful for them. Shout out to all my sponsors. You guys know who you are. To my strength and conditioning coach. He's an amazing guy. He was diagnosed with cancer this year, and he fought cancer, and he's now cancer free. That's Mike Perry. He is an amazing person, and he never once quit on any of us when he was struggling. He always showed up and was always there whenever we needed him. So he's someone who I'm super, super grateful for. He's a fighter in and of himself. I'm a fighter, I get in the cage, but he's a real fighter. So just shout out to him and shout out to, all the people who support me. I'm super grateful. I know it's been a long journey, so we're still going.
We're still going, and I can't wait to have you back on the show after you win. It's going to be
Yes.
fantastic.
Woo-hoo.
I am looking forward to this. I'm a little sweaty. I'm a little nervous about it. But Hilarie, you're amazing as always, and we'll have you back
Thank you
soon.
so much. I always love being on your show. I really appreciate you reaching out to me and always having me on. So